All right, good afternoon. Thank you guys for joining us on this October 2nd. October 2nd was chosen for a very particular reason, and we'll tell you about that in just a minute. I'm Chad Perkins. I represent Northeast Missouri, everything from Hannibal down to Troy and along the river. And we had the real pleasure of this being brought to us about a year ago, this particular piece of legislation. And I got to be honest with you, oftentimes legislation comes to you and it's been brought 4, 5, 6, 7 years and never got anywhere. And it has incredible support from a lot of different places, and there's a whole lot of money spent on it. The fact of the matter is, about this particular piece of legislation, PMDD Awareness, the driving force behind it was one woman, and that was a mother who wanted to pay tribute and honor to her daughter. If anybody ever tells you that one person can't change the world, well, they're wrong. We know that because that's the only thing that has ever changed the world. I want to thank Senator Gannon for carrying it on the Senate side as well. She's not here today, but certainly played a tremendous part in this entire thing. I'd first like to introduce Sarah Earhart-Reed. She is with the Office of Women's Health, the Department of Health and Senior Services. Sarah.
Good afternoon. Like the representative said, I'm Sarah Earhart-Reed. I'm the chief in the Office of Women's Health at the Department of Health and Senior Services, and we're honored today to present a proclamation from the governor recognizing today as Missouri's first ever state PMDD Awareness Day. And we are the first state in the country to have that recognized as a state awareness day, and we are so proud to do so. So we are happy to present this today to the folks who helped lead and organize this event.
And I now want to be able to introduce to you the woman who made all this happen, the lady who has dedicated so much of her life to paying tribute and honor not only to her daughter, but to all the young ladies that have suffered from this, and there have been many. And the fact is, getting early detection will make all the difference. And that early detection starts with being able to have the conversation, right? For people understanding that there's nothing to be ashamed of. It is a health condition like any other health condition, and having a medical professional recognize the signs and symptoms early on will save lives. And the woman who did all that is Mary Beth Bohn.
On behalf of our family, I'd like to thank our legislators who made PMDD Awareness Day official. Being the first state to have a PMDD Awareness Day is certainly something to be very proud of. And I want you to know that Missouri is being watched globally. We have PMDD warriors from around the world who are posting and reposting about Missouri's PMDD Awareness Day. Other states will be using the Missouri model so that they can have PMDD Awareness Day in their own states. We would like to thank Chief of Staff Bruce DeGroot, who introduced me to Representative Chad Perkins, who wrote the bill originally, House Bill 885. We're grateful to Representative Patty Lewis from Kansas City. She's a nurse, and she was so eager to learn about PMDD that she asked if we could have a Zoom meeting and if I could give the presentation to her over the phone. And I'm thankful that her legislative assistant is here with us today. Representative Sherry Tolson Reich. She vouched for us along with Representative Lewis and also Representative Thomas when we testified before the Healthcare Reform Committee. Representative Thomas is a physician, a psychiatrist. We're thankful for her. And when I stopped by her office, she had me in to sit down unscheduled, and she wanted to hear everything about PMDD. And she spoke eloquently in support of passing the bill. We're thankful to the entire Healthcare Reform Committee. We are grateful that they amended the bill so that it would be a PMDD Awareness Day. It was a much more effective strategy, and we're thankful. We're thankful for Senator Elaine Gannon because ultimately Senate Bill 45 passed and our bill was attached to hers. Lobbyist Deanna Hemphill. Without her help, I don't think this would have happened at all. She was the one who called me after she heard me testify, and she said, I need to be on this journey with you. I'm helping you. And with her strategic thinking, it was passed, and she stayed very close, working very closely with Representative Perkins. Patty Lewis had me meet with Otto Fajan, and I'm so thankful she did because he was the one who said, I think your bill would be better if it were changed to being an awareness day. He was absolutely right. Now, everybody by name in terms of friends and family, but I need to say that you were so effective in helping Christina, and we'll go into Christina's story later on, but friends and family who provided distractions and brought happiness and variety to Christina's life when she was home with us for a year and 3 days. They played tennis with her, took her to Zumba. They went hiking. They volunteered at the food bank and the food pantry. They prayed for our daughter every time they walked by our home. They made things for her and brought them to our house. They took her shopping. They went for walks. They gave hugs. They were thoughtful in so many ways. We have family members who made special trips to Missouri who are here today, and we are so thankful. And they came just for Christina. We sincerely thank everyone who loved our daughter and everyone who helped make PMDD Awareness Day a reality.
And behind every great woman is a man, right? I suppose that's not exactly how the quote goes. But in this case, there was a man there to support her, and he has done that role very well. I want to introduce Steve Bohn.
Well, I first want to thank my brother-in-law who put a bunch of toilet paper up here for us to use. I have the privilege of introducing you to Sandy McDonald. Sandy is a co-founder and executive director of the International Association for Premenstrual Disorders, known as IAPMD, an organization she co-founded due to her lived experience with Premenstrual Dysphoric Disorder, PMDD. The IAPMD is the only scientific, evidence-based organization like its kind in existence. Sandy has over 25 years of experience working in the mental health and addiction sectors. She has worked the front lines in these sectors and has taught college-level programs. She has created and implemented programming for many different projects, including peer support programs utilized by people impacted by PMDD and other premenstrual disorders across the globe. As the executive director of IAPMD, she has managed several projects for the organization and has participated in many research projects. She has been published as a co-author in the Journal of International Medical Research, the National Institutes of Health, and Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute. She managed and authored a year-long research project that resulted in the first ever PMDD Roundtable event. This event and project resulted in two first ever patient-centered resources, a guide to conducting rigorous patient-centered PMDD research and a strategic plan to advance patient-centered PMDD research. Sandy lives in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And I just want to let you know that Sandy is the most selfless, dedicated people that cares about everyone. And she works so hard. And she knows for herself what people are going through, and her mission in life, which is very evident, is to help others. And she keeps going and encourages others to keep going. And so I now turn the time over to Sandy McDonald.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am so honored to be here. I really want to stress the importance and the honor of being here today. Obviously, none of this would be possible without Mary Beth and Steve. I first met them when Christina was still with us, and they were going through horrible times, and we went through basically like the peer support process through IAPMD, and I graciously spent time with them and got to know them through the process, and was completely torn apart, as was everybody, when I got the news from them that Christina had taken her life. I just want to really stress to everybody today that there is going to be some very heavy topics. The whole thing is heavy, the whole day is heavy, and it's very important that everybody really takes care of themselves. If you feel that you need to step away, please do. If you feel that you need added support, please let somebody know. We don't want to see anything negative happen like's happened in the past. So please make sure that you take care of yourself. This disorder has been invisible too long, and here we are. We're in this room full of people in this state, in the United States. This would have never happened before. And again, we're very grateful that we are able to have this opportunity to have this conversation out loud. PMDD, it's about your chemistry. It's not about your character. This is not something that somebody does to themselves. Premenstrual Dysphoric Disorder is a neurobiological disorder. It is not a hormone imbalance. That is a common misconception that many people think that it is, but it is not. It is a severe negative reaction to the normal rise and fall of your hormones. It is a flaw in your chemistry, not in your person. Obviously, there's a abnormal fluctuation during the luteal phase, and these are the things that happen to warriors. This affects 1 in 20 menstruators, and that equates to about 4.2 million people in the United States alone. It is more severe than PMS, and there is a difference between PMS and PMDD. PMS is a little bit more normal. We don't want to normalize it. However, sometimes a couple of days before things it's not as severe. With PMDD, it is a lot more severe, and you're a lot more emotional. The symptoms are more emotional. Your anxiety may be ramped up, your irritability, mood swings, just more severe than a regular PMS. Symptoms in PMS can occur about a week before menses. Symptoms of PMDD can occur, it can go on for 2 weeks. Some people have even talked to us about it lasting even longer. PMS usually doesn't cause as much of a life disruption, but PMDD causes more of a life disruption. You become more unwell. You may have to become medicated. You have to really seek out appropriate help. It is an official world diagnosis. It is in the DSM-5. There are actually, interestingly enough, there are some really great updates taking place, because suicidality is actually not one of the symptoms that is listed in the DSM-5, but they are working to get that into the DSM-6. So we are very hopeful as we continue to raise awareness and things are worked on in the community that will become something, because as I will talk a little bit more about our research a little bit later, but you will see that that is something that we really need to be talking about. It has also been added to the ICD-11, which is from the World Health Organization. It is there in 2 sections, and it talks about it globally recognizes it, diagnosis, treatment, research, statistical reporting, etc. So that was a very big step in the right direction. The disheartening part about that is in the United States, we are still using the ICD-10. So we have a little bit of ways to go in order to get there to move this forward. And again,
here we are trying to talk about it so that we can get those things done. PMDD is always overlooked, often overlooked. It is underdiagnosed, misdiagnosed, dismissed by medical practitioners very often as normalized behavior. Mistreated and individualized responses can be very different. It is under-researched, and of course, we have the stigma which comes with it. People are continuing to fall through the cracks. We see this every day, and we don't want those things to keep happening. Women's reproductive and mental health hasn't been a priority in the past, and that's something that we want to keep moving that needle forward. It is caught a little bit in between a gynecological order and a mental health disorder. So there are some disparages there because it falls into different offices, we'll say. So we have, OBGYNs over here, and we may have psychology and psychiatrists over here, because it does fall into the two categories. You can get patients that are going back and forth. And so we need to figure out how to connect those, and those steps are being taken seriously, and they are moving forward. And again, like I say, when we continue to do things like this, we can keep those things moving forward. As a result, people are dying every day, as we see, and I will talk a little bit more about that, but we don't want to continue to see people falling through the cracks. IAPMD is helping fill the gaps. We're a patient-founded organization. We founded it, we were a collective group of sufferers that we were all diagnosed. We all went through what most PMDD warriors went through. We were misdiagnosed with things such as bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder. Some of us suffered through postpartum depression, and many other hormonal or reproductive hormonal disorders. So we want to keep talking about those things, and I'm completely losing my train of thought because I'm getting emotional like everybody else here. And as I look in the audience, which I was told not to do, I can see people upset. We are patient-focused. We have had over 1 million people come to the organization for peer support and other resources. And we have a wealth of information. We have an amazing clinical advisory board. Nothing that we release on that website, it has not been researched. So everything that we have has gone through a very rigorous research process. So everything on the website has been researched. Nothing is on there. There's nothing that has just been thrown up there. Basically, we are very cautious as to what we share. We are shedding a light on patient experience. So in 2018, we did the first ever global survey of premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And as a result of that, we found some very harming statistics. The one that is the most alarming is 34% of people with PMDD have attempted suicide. And the unfortunate part is people have succeeded. And we want to talk about this because we don't want to see these things keep happening. The other alarming things we found was it takes 12 years and 6 providers before somebody gets an appropriate diagnosis. Not okay. 19% of PMDD patients have been hospitalized at least once for possibly an attempt, self-harm, or rage, or whatever the case may be. 57% of people have lost their intimate partner as a result of struggling with this disorder. And 16.8% of people have lost their jobs because of struggling with this disorder. We're helping drive research and move it forward. We work really hard every day. We have a very small, dedicated team of people that have been moving the needle forward. And we were gracious enough to receive a research grant from the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute, where we did a year-long project. We did a roundtable event where we had clinicians from all around the globe and patients from all around the globe take part. And this has helped us move this all forward with these wonderful guides that have been created. They can also be found on the website, and it's a wealth of information that anybody can utilize. We've available to the public so that anybody can see them. We need to take action, so what can people do? We have been talked to Mary Beth and Steve many times about Christina's questions. And so We want clinicians, we want people to be asking these questions. When was your last period? When are you expecting your next period? What does PMS look like for you? If people start asking these questions, they may see that there's more going on with the individual than just nothing. Maybe there won't be some medical gaslighting. Maybe things will be different for some people. And then maybe if people do start asking some of these questions, we will see less people fall through the cracks, and then hopefully we can change that 34% statistic. What can you do as a family member, friend? You are all doing something already by being here. This is amazing that we have all the chairs filled. We have all these people here. That is amazing. This is the first step in the right direction, is being here. You're all gaining knowledge by all these amazing people here, and you can gain knowledge from each other. Ask the questions, tell your story. Go to the website, www.iapmd.org. There's a wealth of knowledge there. Share it with people. If you think you are a sufferer, print off information and take it with you. Do the self-screener that's on there to see where you fit on the PMDD spectrum. There's so many resources there. There's peer support, there's video support groups. Nobody with PMDD needs to be left alone. Thank you very much. Sorry, I wasn't sure. I would now like to introduce Jamie Alexander. She is a fellow PMDD warrior. She is a surgical nurse that has survived this disorder, like myself and like probably many of you here. She's going to graciously share her story with us. She is a mom, and she's currently studying her master's in nursing. So she's a twofold rock star when it comes to PMDD, because not only is she working to help others, strugglers and warriors, she's also helping herself, and she's very busy doing that too. So I gladly welcome Jamie up to the stage.
Sorry, I'm gonna be crying. Can everybody hear me? I'm short, sorry. So when Sandy had asked me to speak, and she asked me yesterday for my bio so she could introduce me, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to tell you, because there is nothing extraordinary about me. Thank you. I grew up, I had a normal childhood, I graduated, I went to nursing school. There was nothing unique about me. So I think something that we've kind of noticed with people that we have met over the past, I don't know, couple of weeks when we've been talking about this, is it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care whose daughter you are. It doesn't care what you do. It doesn't care how much money you have. It can affect anybody. So I guess one of the things I was thinking about was, when you do not know something about a topic, what is the first thing that anybody does? Or what I'm trying to learn about PMDD. I Googled. And so I'm always going to speak for myself right now, but whenever I do a search, I look through the first page. I don't ever go to the second page, because for me, it's less work to just type in something else and just scroll just a couple of scrolls up. So whenever you search for PMDD, I did kind of a experiment a couple weeks ago. I ended up only going to like the 50th result, but 11 of those were sponsored ads, and 5 of those only said 2 words that were even remotely close to what PMDD encompasses, and those were the words disabling and disruptive. Pretty much everything else said that it was a severe form of PMS. I'm guilty of it myself. I've used the same language when people ask me about it. I've said, PMS or PMDD is basically just PMS on steroids. And I say that usually because it's somebody asking me and I am ashamed to talk about it. there's a stigma with mental health. There's stigmas with being a woman. And it's just easier to cover it up and pretend like it's not there. So I definitely attributed to that to myself. Sorry, I'm gonna cry the whole time, and I'm gonna have to read because I cannot remember what I say. So fortunately and unfortunately, I've decided that I can't just pick one struggle in life. I became really suspicious in probably 2005 that I had some form of depression. I was 18 at the time. Could have had something to do with the series of poor life choices that I had made at the time. My mom could probably tell you more about that, but I was in a really unhealthy relationship, and I was using drugs. In February 2006, I had reached my limit. I mentioned that it was a series of poor choices, so my husband at the time, we were fighting. It was about 2 a.m, and things were escalating as they usually did. I was in my bathroom screaming, crying, and we lived in an apartment at the time, so our neighbors, they loved us. But I was yelling for somebody to call the police. He was desperately trying to get in the door, and I knew that if he was coming in, it was kill or be killed. So I laid in my bathroom floor, and I was wondering, where did I take a wrong turn? I couldn't recognize the person that I was looking at in the mirror anymore. I started looking around my bathroom, trying to find the quickest way to end my misery. Once I realized what I was contemplating, what I was thinking about, it scared me. So that night, he went off to jail, and I went into treatment somewhere. It was, 4 a.m. when I had to call my mom and tell her that I was going into treatment somewhere. It was a place where they take away your shoestrings. They have a mirror in the bathroom that's not a real mirror that you can't break. They have utensils that are plastic that you can't hurt yourself with. It was really humbling to think about how I got there and what I was looking at. My mom and dad came in the next day, and by that time I had sobered up, and I was adamant that any suicidal ideation had passed. Fairly certain that I was on a 72-hour hold and going home was not an option, but I begged and pleaded my mom and dad, please let me come home. My parents were the first ones that saved me. I'm sure that it was difficult for her to tell me, but she said, my mom told me, you came here in the middle of the night, something brought you here. So I think you need to stay and figure it out. I completed detox and was eventually discharged, and then was involved in an intensive outpatient program. I do remember when we were there, we would separate into small groups, and they would say, where are you going? Like, I'm going with the depressed people over here, but they wanted me to go with the people who had addiction issues. And so that really was perplexing to me because I didn't think that I had a problem, which denial is it's like one of my favorite coping mechanisms. But I ended up going to outpatient therapy, participated in that for quite a while. And part of that is they put you on antidepressants. And so Eventually, I was able to navigate through all of that and kind of graduate and move on, and became part of a 12-step group, and life was better. I'd gotten a divorce. That was probably a big part of it, but life was better. I wasn't using drugs anymore. I had kind of stabilized back out and kind of come myself again. Shortly after that, I started experiencing pelvic pain because, I can't just pick one thing. I have to do it. I have to go all the way. So started having pelvic pain and would go in to see my GYN and discovered that I had endometriosis. So I ended up having 2 surgeries. I was really worried about fertility. That was my biggest concern at the time, but luckily in 2011, I got to come home with the best Mother's Day gift that anybody could give me, and that was my son. He's 12 now, and he would want you to know that he's taller than me. So I can remember going through my pregnancy, and the first thing that we discussed was my antidepressant. Should I stay on it? Is it safe? Is it not? And we all kind of came together and made a decision that I was going to come off of it. I was going to make sure I kind of made any kind of notice of any depression symptoms or postpartum issues if I got that far. And, life was going to be good because I had a new baby boy. Again, denial is probably my favorite coping mechanism. So I ended up having to go back on my antidepressant several months postpartum. I also found out as well that I was starting to have more and more pelvic pain, and I was going to need to have another surgery likely. My son was probably 2 at the time, and so my husband at the time, we talked. My doctor and I talked, and we all had a plan. And it was a great plan. I loved the plan. I was going to have another surgery. I was going to have 1 more baby, and then I was going to have a hysterectomy and oophorectomy, and I was going to be done with depression. I was going to be done with endometriosis and pelvic pain, and life was going to be great again. No one followed that plan at all. My doctor moved to Michigan, and I got divorce number 2. So no one understood the assignment at all. We all just went rogue and did whatever we wanted to. So that didn't work out. But luckily, I had been experienced with things kind of just going a different direction and having to adapt. So I did start to notice in 2015, my son would have been 4, that I was progressively getting worse, that the depression that I had, I would have lows, and then I would just have lower, and it would never come, I would never really feel okay, I guess. So I did actually go in, I talked to my primary care doctor, and she was great. She went through my history with me. We talked about all the medications I had tried in the past. We had talked about all the things that didn't work or did work, and she recognized that she was a little bit over her head, so she sent me to see a specialist. So I first, and the first thing that he did whenever I was there was he had to, you have to fill out paperwork. So I filled out, and for any healthcare practitioners in here, I had to fill out a depression inventory. So it's basically a survey. You answer questions, and it is how often or how frequently have you felt this in the past 2 weeks? And so apparently there's a scale that goes with it. And he said anything from 11 to a 20 would be considered a mild case of depression. A 21 to a 30 would be moderate. and a 31 to a 40 would be severe. And anything over that would be an extreme. And so we talked about this, we went through my appointment, and at the end he was telling me this, and he said, you scored a 41. I was shocked. I was crying. I was crying. I was an extremely depressed person. But I felt like it was the first time that I was going to be able to make a plan and it was going to go somewhere. So him and I worked together for probably 6 months. We tried 4 different medications. He never felt like, or it never felt to me like he was exhausted or wanted to give up. It was always he was going to try something else. So he was definitely the second person in my lifeline that saved me. At the time, I'm so sorry. At the time, we had even come up with a backup plan. And so the backup plan was I was going to have a different medication. It was kind of like a rescue medication whenever I was having my PMDD days. And so it eventually got to the point where I was doing so well that I didn't need that anymore. And so I had 2 probably really great years. My poor boyfriend at the time, he was getting yelled at all the time for whatever reason. He probably felt like we had a couple of good years. I had an IUD, so I was suppressing my periods, so I didn't have these highs and lows, it didn't seem like. Obviously, I was not able to maintain this. So, 2019, before the dreaded pandemic, I started to take a dive, and I could feel myself starting to start the steady decline again. It was to the point where I had to go back on my rescue meds, and they were actually an antipsychotic. So somebody who's already struggling with who they are, what's going on with them, how they feel about themselves, when you have to be on something and put a label to it, that made it 100 times worse, and it made me want to hide even more. And so I had mentioned that, the internet talks about PMDD and it's a severe form of PMS, and I don't think that there is a word that can describe it or do that any justice. When I would have my bad days, it was like taking a pendulum up to its pinnacle and weighing it down with all of your bloatedness and your anger and your sadness and every negative emotion you have experienced in your life and just dropping it. And it's not that it's just the situation at the time, it is your brain telling you or reliving every negative thing you've ever told yourself. It is everybody who's ever told you something bad about yourself. It is all reliving that at one time. I knew that I had reached a point when something was going to have to change when I called him one day to work. I called him from the parking garage. People love that. People really love that. But it was because my dog would not come in to the house that morning and I was late to work. And so I've obviously had a lot of experience with mental health providers over the years. So I talked to my therapist at the time and I said, I'm just sobbing in my car. And I said, I cannot go in. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like, I'm judging myself right now. If I were somebody at work right now and my coworker didn't come to work because their dog wouldn't come in, I would just absolutely lose my mind. And so she said one of the things that was probably the most simple, but the most helpful things for me to hear in, 15 years of therapy. She said, it doesn't matter if you think it's ridiculous, it's real to you. And that was one of the first times that I felt like whatever I'm experiencing or whatever I'm feeling right now, it's where I am, it's okay, and I can accept that that's where I am right now and not have to judge myself while I'm dealing with this as well. From May of 2021 until December, I had about 4 different episodes that made me call into work. They made me sit on the sidelines and watch my own life go by me. Every time I would call in, I would make sure that I kept myself accountable, that I called my doctor's office and I told them what was going on. And every time you call to a mental health practitioner's office in crisis mode, they're always going to ask you the same thing. And that's going to be, are you a harm to yourself or anybody else? And every single time, I would answer no. And every single time, that was a lie. As a single mom, I knew that I couldn't afford a 72-hour mandatory vacation. You know, there was somebody else depending on me, so I had to at least hold it together enough to be at home and take care of my son. Switching gears a little bit, I would go into my doctor's office, to my GYN's office, and I had seen the same office since my other doctor had left, but wasn't having a baby, I wasn't having surgery, so I would see the nurse practitioner there. And it was kind of the same complaints over the years, progressively getting worse with my depression. She said, you know, no one's going to do surgery on you. I was in my early 30s, and again, it was kind of no one's going to do surgery on you. And it was really defeating because I had that plan in place, but no one followed the directions of that. Anyway, I decided to give up my loyalty to that office, and that was really difficult for me to do. But I did find another doctor, and I went in, and she cried with me, and she listened to me, and she talked to me about it. I've heard other women say that it's not even a discussion that their doctor is willing to have with them. It was the first time that I've actually felt some kind of hope. Her and I had come together, we had made a plan, this one went better. And so I am obviously, I was anxious and I was really ready to get it over with, but I only wanted to move forward with anything if I knew it was right. And so my biggest fear was that I would end up having organs removed from my pelvis, but I was going to find out that the problem was really between my 2 ears. So I wanted to know for sure before I go through a life-changing surgery that this is going to work. And so I was able to do Lupron for 3 months and add back some estrogen, and it was successful. So last May of 22, my life changed immensely. I'm not able to have children anymore, but I'm able to actually know that I'm going to be around to watch my son graduate, because before I did not. And that boy is the reason why I feel like I need to be here and stick around. He is my final lifeline, I feel like. While I was recovering from surgery, I was able to meet somebody on the internet but it was a fellow sufferer, and she had had surgery the same day that I did. And she was all the way around the world in Australia. So when I said it doesn't discriminate, it doesn't stop at state lines either. It can be anywhere. And so her and I laugh about it now. We kind of talked about our expectations and hopes for things afterwards. And I said, I really trying to be realistic for myself. I just want to be as depressed as normally depressed people. If I can just keep myself from having these highs and these lows, then that will be good enough for me. Luckily, I don't think that I don't think I've yelled at my poor boyfriend in a year and a half now. I don't even know if, it almost feels like I can't even get to that place of so much anger and rage and hostility anymore, which is a good thing. And so, sorry, lost my place. I think everything came full circle for me. Probably, I don't know, several months ago when the dang dog, took a field trip again before work. And this time I actually had to go get in the car to go find him before work. I was late still. And they picked the creepiest place they could possibly be. So I had to go pick him up in the cemetery in the dark with no lights. 6 a.m, cursing at them, whatever. But I drove to work and it wasn't a big deal. I didn't want to drive my car off a ledge because the dang dog wouldn't come in. So actually having those experiences and not wanting to have such an extreme response to something so little, it was huge for me. And so I guess people have asked about surgery now, or surgery and house life now. And I guess the best way that I can explain it in my very, very loose interpretation of electricity would be that there's almost like a dimmer or a light dimmer, and it's been turned down, but it's still there. It was inside me, and it could just be completely set off at any minute. And now it feels like there's a switch that has been completely shut off. And it's been life-changing. And so I've met some really great people throughout this process. I think Mary Beth and Steve, I'm so sorry because this is fantastic. But there's a mother now that she doesn't get to see her kids graduate. And I think you all have done an amazing job of turning a terrible situation into something great. Because, So for anybody else who feels like that seems familiar to them, that they think they may have it, what I would say to you is that don't keep it to yourself. And so, I know it sounds weird, but I feel fortunate that I've grown up in recovery because I feel like a lot of the times that I've had to get through things have been because of things that I've learned there. And so I did want to read something that I found that I was looking at this morning. It says, our secrets cause us more harm than good when we keep them completely to ourselves. If we give in to our reluctance to reveal our true nature to even one other person, the secrets become more powerful. We are only as sick as the secrets that we keep. When we share our secrets in confidence with at least one other human being, and that person does not reject us, we realize that honest sharing is not so life-threatening. The secrets start to lose their power, and our secrets die in the light of exposure. So please do not go through this by yourself. Trust your gut. If you think there's something wrong, you've got to reach out to somebody. Sandy has done a fantastic job on IAPMD. It's a phenomenal website. There's tons of resources on there. There's tons of different, information on things you can take to your doctor. Like, go to the doctor and be prepared. You're going to have to jump through hoops. It's just part of it right now, but you can get there. There's somebody that will listen to you. There's somebody that is willing to help you. And I think the biggest thing is that healthcare needs to meet us halfway. I am a nurse. I play the game too. I feel like, where you have to have that fine balance between healthcare and customers and all of those other things. But I think that we can't fix something until we know it's a problem. And we're not going to know it's a problem if we don't talk about it. So that's why I'm here today, ugly crying and talking to you about my experience. Because if I can help at least one other woman, one other family decrease their suffering by even one cycle, then that would be worth it to me. And thank you for letting me share with you all.
Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you. We've had a lot of help getting this through the legislature this year. Patty Lewis, who's not here today, but she was incredibly helpful with that. Another individual who is incredibly helpful with that is someone that I lean on very heavily when it comes to medical advice, not personal, but as it pertains to the public good, right? If you live around the Lake of the Ozarks, you are incredibly well represented by our next speaker, Representative Dr. Lisa Thomas. Well, I screwed that up. Oh, okay. We are going to go now back to Sarah Earhart Reed. Right? Okay. Should have looked at this. We'll go back now to Sarah Earhart Reed for Missouri's PMDD Awareness efforts.
Thank you again. Our office at the Office of Women's Health has a mission of helping to improve the health and safety of lives of women across our state. So when we were contacted by Mary Beth earlier this year to help increase awareness and to learn how we could collaborate, it became a part of our mission to help spread the awareness of this particular health concern for women. So one of the things that we're working on is finding the opportunities where we can spread the message and increase awareness with our networks, including today we had Mary Beth and Sandy come and present at one of our maternal mortality review panels to help identify cases where moms may be dying postpartum from what may appear as postpartum depression or mental health, suicide, overdose, but maybe we're missing a part of the picture. We're bringing it to our school nurses, bringing it to different healthcare providers across the state, teaching them about Christina's questions so we can help spread that awareness, help increase education across the state. And I just would echo the sentiments of the colleagues up here today that no one should have to do this alone. And if after today you're feeling overwhelmed, stressed, to reach out to the 988 suicide helpline number, that no one has to do this alone, that there are resources available. And we're just so proud to be able to partner with this group to help increase education and increase awareness. Thank you.
Now I got to come up with all new stuff to say about Lisa. So. I do want to say real quickly, before we turn it over to our final speaker, as you leave here today and you go back to your communities, spread the word there so that young women know about it, so that your medical professionals know about it. That's important. To the lady in the back with the camera, thank you for being here. Spread the word. Share Christina's story with the world. If Jamie will allow you, share her story with the world, because I think you're going to find that it saves lives. And thank you for being here. Our final speaker of the day, Dr. Lisa Thomas. Oh, okay, I'm all wrong. Let me just read this. Supporting our loved ones with I'm just going to read it off the script. Supporting our loved ones with PMDD. I got to come up with something new again. Supporting our loved ones with PMDD and remembering Christina Elizabeth Bohn and Steve and Mary Beth Bohn.
Thank you. We appreciate Jamie sharing her story. I think it gives you an idea of how truly exhausting it is to be a PMDD warrior, because they suffer for many, many years, the average of 12 years. Christina was seeking help for 11 years. We look back and we think that she may have had it for as long as 15 years. But you go to doctor after doctor and get misdiagnosis after misdiagnosis. And even in the end, when we lost our daughter, we weren't quite sure if she was really, truly getting the help that we thought we were getting for her. I want to thank the team that I assembled with Sarah Earhart-Reed from the Office on Women's Health, Sandy McDonald, the Executive Director of IAPMD, Sheila Buchert, the Board President of IAPMD, Deanna Hempel, lobbyist. We've been working together with several meetings, talking about what our state can do and how we can all work together and collaborate. And we have pulled this meeting together today. It was deliberate, it was intentional. We're very, very thankful to have you here. I would like now to turn my attention to talking about our sweet Christina, our precious daughter. It was a delight to raise her and our daughter, Marissa. They were 3.5 years apart. After a few years, they looked like they were twins. People would often confuse them. They wore the same clothes. I mean, it's not twins, but we separated their clothes by hearts and stars. And Dr. Thomas will tell you more about the significance of the lapel pin later. Both our daughters were bright. Both daughters, Marissa and Christina, were good students. They were both athletic, with tennis being the family sport. They were talented in so many ways. Christina was a classically trained vocalist and pianist. She was a National Merit Scholar. She received many full-ride scholarships. She spoke at her high school graduation. She chose to attend Brigham Young University and was accepted into the College of Nursing. She taught economics labs while she was an undergrad. She also did research for the College of Nursing and was published and received a grant as an undergrad. She graduated as valedictorian and spoke at her college graduation. And then she began her nursing career in Texas in cardiac care. My husband and I moved to Missouri in 2011, just 3 months after she had moved back home to Texas for her first nursing job. We were just a couple of weeks here in Missouri when Christina called to say she had attempted suicide. To us, this was so out of the blue. We didn't understand what was happening to her. I flew down to Texas to be with her and dear friends who welcomed our Christina into their home. They became her second parents. The husband is a doctor, so Christina could talk with him every night after work. She was loved and cared for by our dear friends who are here with us today. Christina returned to Utah after several months. She seemed so much better. She married and started working as a thoracic ICU nurse and put her husband through his last 2 years of undergrad. And then he went to law school and they had their 2 babies. What we would later learn is that Christina was high functioning. She was able to wear a mask. She received great reviews as a thoracic ICU nurse and as a preceptor. She held leadership positions in our church. She always went the extra mile and was a hard worker. She was masking her increasing symptoms. You have learned about those symptoms today from Jamie. That took a lot of courage for her to share because they don't want to share. And we found that even with our own daughter, she didn't even want to talk to us about it. In late 2018 or 2019, the mask started slowly slipping off. The symptoms of whatever she was experiencing were becoming worse. She would call with various diagnoses, and none of them seemed to fit, and nothing seemed to work for her. On October 2nd, 2020, Christina went to the emergency room on her birthday for suicidality. We were thinking maybe it was the isolation of COVID making her more depressed. The next day, she woke up and she told the nurse practitioner in the behavioral health unit in Lincoln, Nebraska, that she started her period in the night and was feeling so much better and asked if she could go home. Now, you have just learned about premenstrual dysphoric disorder today. Did you just have a light bulb moment? Christina went to the hospital for suicidality, started her period, and felt so much better. There is a connection between menstrual health and mental health. Neither Christina nor that nurse practitioner knew about PMDD, so it was not a consideration. The nurse told Christina that she had treatment-resistant depression and strongly encouraged Christina to undergo electroconvulsive therapy, and she wanted Christina to have her first session before leaving the hospital. Christina would call me during the month to say the ECT was not working. I begged her not to do it and asked if I could do research for her. But Christina was desperate to get well, and she continued to be compliant. She later asked if she could come home to our home for 2.5 weeks to recover from the ECT. Then she planned to return to her husband and 2 little children. We still wonder how she managed to drive the 5 hours to our home. We realized when she walked in the door that we should have gone to pick her up. Sadly, Christina did not return to her husband and 2 young children after the 2.5 weeks. Rather, she stayed with us for 1 year and 3 days. Over 100 days cumulatively were spent between 2 behavioral health units here in Missouri. We often drove to St. Mary's in Jefferson City and called Christina on the patient phone in the behavioral health unit. She would then walk with a nurse to the floor-to-ceiling windows on the 4th floor, and we would stand in the parking lot and wave to her. And we would sign that we loved her, or we would stand there and cry. We wondered where our daughter went. We would drop off gifts in the emergency room that would be carried up to her. We had flowers delivered from Bush's florist every time she was admitted. We addressed the card to the doctors, the nurses, the staff, and to our sweet Christina. We wanted her to know how special she was, how she was loved, and that she mattered. For the first time in 9 months, we didn't know what for the first 9 months, we didn't know what Christina really had. It wasn't until we had to return Christina to the hospital on July 16, 2021 for delusions, and we prayed for her and by our bed, and we were sobbing and asking for divine help because we needed to get her well and return her to her children as a healthy and capable mother. That night, a message came to my mind telling me to look up menstrual psychosis, a term I'd never heard before. I Googled it and I read about PMDD all night long. I might as well say I read about Christina all night long. The next morning, with the help of Christina's phone app, I was able to make a grid showing all her hospitalizations due to suicide attempts or delusions happened at day 2 or 3 before her period started. After years of misdiagnoses, we finally knew Christina had PMDD. We thought we were seeing the sun shining in the dark tunnel we were in with Christina for the last 9 months. We often would talk about how we saw the Lord's hand guiding us through that tunnel, and we still believe it. We will not lose our faith, but we use the term "but if not," and we will always remain faithful to our God for guiding us through those times. We just spent 9 months wondering, where did our daughter go? I would email that question periodically to her inpatient psychiatrist, and he would always respond, "There is always hope." And I clung to his words. In November 2021, in the beginning of November, we thought we were nearing the finish line, eager for surgery, eager for Christina to start a new life with PMDD behind her, when suddenly Christina went missing, and friends and the police searched for her all day. We lost our dear daughter to suicide on November 3rd, 2021. She left a 6-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old son, our precious grandchildren who we see often. PMDD is indeed the great liar and the great thief. It lies to sufferers every single month for a week or 2, telling them they are worthless and hopeless, that they are incapable. It can cause a myriad of symptoms, so it's manifesting in different ways. We worry about the girls who are in alternate high schools. We worry about women in prison. We worry about women in neighborhoods who are suffering silently and not talking to anyone because of the shame. We knew we had to talk about PMDD. We knew the night Christina's body was found, we had to talk about it. And we knew there were 3 stigmas: suicide, mental illness, and menstrual cycles. And we had to put on those blinders and just ignore those stigmas and talk about it. We are thankful for your support. We're thankful to see you here today. I'm going to turn the time over to Steve.
As caregivers, we learn some lessons that we think might help others. We learned it's better not to try to inspire or cheer up with inspirational quotes or articles. There's no quote or scripture or article in the world that could suddenly make someone in the deep pit of the luteal phase realize they were amazingly better for having read something. No article or quote can remove the effects of a sensitive brain responding negatively to the shift of hormones during the luteal phase. We learned our providing love, hugs, and reassurance were the best things we could do. We watched movies as a distraction. We gave back and head massages. We learned about anxiety and panic attacks and how to remind her about the things she could do to find some relief. We stood by her and supported her without lectures. On a social media platform, Mary Beth asked a group of PMDD warriors, who know who she is, what they would like partners, parents, and healthcare providers to know. They trusted us with their comments, knowing we would share some of them today. Following are a few comments they want you to hear. For family and friends, they said, quote, "Sometimes there is nothing you can do. A big part is having understanding and reasonable forgiveness and support when we come back to ourselves after a PMDD episode," end quote. Another said, "I just need space to feel and an understanding that how I feel isn't really under my control. I wish my husband could understand that I don't hate him, that it's only temporary, that I'll be back soon," end quote. Another said, "I get a sense of understanding and relief from a partner and family when they actively search information on their own instead of me having to do the educating as well as actively deal with it." Another said, "I need empathy and space, and to hear I am fully loved and not a burden. I know I'm hard to live with sometimes, but I need to hear I am worth it, and that we're teamed up together against PMDD." Another said, "Acknowledgement, empathy, not trying to fix anything, but just allowing the feelings to be there. Be patient and let us know you're there for whatever support we need. Remind us that these feelings will pass." Another said, "Just be there without judgment. I just need unconditional love." Another said, "Distraction is one of the best ways a loved one can help someone who is going through PMDD. Just being there through the storm can make a world of difference." Another said, "Having someone who truly believes us, who genuinely believes everything that we are saying to the extent that we do, is enlightening." Now for healthcare professionals, they said, "Embrace emerging information, update and remove information that was previously relevant regarding women's health. It can mean life or death." Another said, "Spend more time with your patients. Listen to them, believe them, be open-minded and work with them, and research what is unfamiliar to you." Another said, "Ask women if their symptoms worsen with their cycle changes. If they're not sure, ask them to track it." Another said, "Teach anyone with female hormones at a young age what is happening with their cycle and the effects it may have on them physically and mentally." Another said, "Take this seriously. This is a serious problem that affects so many of us and our quality of life. Listen to us, advocate for us, believe in us." Awareness and early education were also mentioned, a voice to support those who suffer with PMDD. Christina, like so many other PMDD warriors, want to be remembered. want to be remembered as they truly are: intelligent, accomplished, talented, helpful, kind, funny, friendly, and loving individuals. We wish you all new all Christina as we remember her.
I walk down memory lane, 'cause I love running into you. How are you? I'm doing great, and I have a knack for you. I just love the idea when I see you in my head. That's why I walk down memory lane, 'cause it's the only place that I have you again. You tell me all your bad jokes, I laugh when the punchlines end. You're wearing your yellow coat, the one you're wearing when we danced in your kitchen. I still miss it every day. I'll always laugh at all your bad jokes while I keep walking down this road, 'cause it's all that I have left of you. No, there's nothing left for us to do here on earth. So all the memories are my all-time favorite movie. The older that I get, the more I can't let you go, yeah. Every birthday and holiday, wish you were here to celebrate. So I walk down memory lane, 'cause I love running into you. How are you? I'm doing great, and I have a knack for you. You know I'd walk for miles, but that's my own mountain. That's why I walk down memory lane, 'cause it's the only place that you have loved.
Another person we really ought to thank, because this movement had kind of stalled out here in the building a little bit, and then Deanna Hempel came along and helped to successfully navigate it through the building, and there are countless young women in the state of Missouri who will forever be in your debt, so thank you for your help. I've already introduced this lady twice, so everything I said before is still true. Representative Lisa Thomas.
Good afternoon, and that's difficult to follow. What an amazing lady she was, and I'm very proud and grateful to be a small part of bringing PMDD awareness in Christina's honor to the public and to the medical profession. I am a state representative, but I'm also a physician. See one of my mentors from years ago sitting right there, Dr. Terry. It's wonderful to see you. And as a psychiatrist, dealing with mental health issues. It's just painful to see someone who suffered and know so many people are out there who suffered. But when I was in training, PMDD was not on our radar screen. And one of the amazing things about the work that Mary Beth and Steve have done in Christina's honor is to bring PMDD out more into the open, into awareness, and to kind of utilize a really, well, phrase you've all heard, that common things happen commonly. Now, with PMDD Awareness Day, PMDD is going to be on the radar screen of those who are in training, those who are in practice, those who are in the general public, and for sufferers as well. People who've wondered, what's wrong with me? This diagnosis doesn't fit. I'm not getting help. This just isn't working. There is no hope. Well, actually, there is hope. And if the diagnosis that you've been given doesn't fit, keep pushing, as Christina and her family did. Find somebody who can take a history that includes, Christina's questions. I think we need to get those into medical school so that those basic issues should be part of a thorough history. And it's appalling that they haven't been so far. And I think this is an opportunity to truly revolutionize women's health care by getting those basic questions as they relate to a lot of different disorders, but certainly to PMDD, out there so that we don't have needless suffering. And I wrote and rewrote some final comments before today, but listening to the presentation, I'm going to just kind of scrap those and go with what I've been saying. And just, again, in Christina's honor, I think it's amazing the work that's been done, the work that will continue to be done, the research, the hope that is now out there, and using this as a model to move forward. It's a tremendous honor to be part of this program, and definitely go out and spread the word. PMDD is real. It's a cyclical syndrome, and that makes it very, very difficult, or previously difficult, to identify. It's not like you walk into the ER with a single seizure and people figure out the cause of that seizure. This presents in different ways over a long period of time. You were probably shocked at the amount of time it took before that diagnosis came into being, and that's not uncommon with psychiatric illness. It can be, sadly, anywhere from 6 to 15 years to get a bipolar diagnosis. Bipolar disorder has been recognized for decades and decades and decades. But because of the nature of psychiatric illness, the complexity of human behavior and emotions and all the other components, the PMDD fits within that. But again, you've just, by this Awareness Day in Christina's honor, you have made this more common. It's going to be out there. It's going to be on the list to be looked at as a potential for anyone having these kinds of symptoms. And as I said, that's a truly remarkable accomplishment. So I thank the people sitting behind me and all those others involved in the process, and you for being here and being supportive. So again, as tragic as Christina's situation was, her legacy lives on and will help a tremendous number of others from now forward. Thank you very much.